I've personally found that the practice of cultivating Vairagya or detachment, as mentioned in the Bhagavad Gita, has been one of the most powerful practices I've been able to bring into my life to help me bring down anxiety, to help me bring down feelings of stress, and to help me more often than not be able to be in a sense of peaceful stability, even amongst the midst of challenging circumstances that arise in all of our lives. My name is Darren. I'm a yoga teacher, a yoga therapist, and a yoga teacher trainer. And on this channel, we try to look into various aspects of yoga that can help us in our day-to-day lives. What I'd like to talk about today is detachment in the context of the Bhagavad Gita. And in doing so, I'd also like to share something personal from my own life, because having contemplated it, I feel that this is probably the best way to put across the value of this concept of Vairagya or detachment. Now, we're continuing this week looking at the Bhagavad Gita, and in a moment we'll come to one of the verses in chapter 2 that talks about detachment. But what I'd like to explain first is how valuable and how powerful something like detachment can be in our day-to-day lives. So since our daughter was born, and our daughter is now coming to around 3.5 years old, she's had a variety of ongoing, what you might call long-term health issues. And of course, for all of those of us that are parents, when we initially know that as a family we are pregnant, for example, we get very excited, and we hope and we expect in some ways that the child that is born is going to be in full health, particularly if we ourselves were born in full health without any issues. And of course, it can be quite a shock, and it can be really quite emotionally distressing and upsetting when we find out either during pregnancy or shortly after the birth of that child that there is some kind of fundamental health problem which could cause them issues or challenges for the rest of their lives and can impact the lives of that family. So if we're very, very attached to the idea that our child should be completely healthy, in other words, if we're very, very attached to ideas that our life should be perfect, and anything that is not perfect according to our own minds is something that needs to be resisted, is something that needs to be fought against, is something that needs to be challenged, we're going to find ourselves in a constant state of stress and anxiety, because nothing in the external world that we see is aligned with the very, very attached view that we have to how perfection should be arising in our lives. So without my yoga practice, and without the ability to have cultivated to a certain degree a practice of detachment, I would have held very, very fast to the idea that everything was wrong because of the fact that our daughter wasn't born in full health. Now, it's not to say that deep down in some way there isn't a desire for her, of course, to be completely healthy. And it's not to say that one doesn't work as a parent to the best of our capacity, whatever that means, according to our resources, according to the country where we live, according to the medical facilities that we have available to ourselves. It doesn't mean that we don't work tirelessly to a certain degree in order to try to find solutions to the health problem and try to really access the healthcare that could potentially help our children. But at the same time, if we are attached to an outcome that says that if I go through this process, my child needs to be healthy, we are constantly going to be in a state of disappointment. And not only are we going to be in a state of disappointment, we're going to add to our distress and to our anxiety because of the fact that nothing, again, in the external world is according to the psychological expectations that we have for that situation. It was only by reflecting on this teaching of detachment that comes up in the Bhagavad Gita and in other yoga literature that we can understand that actually, particularly in terms of the Bhagavad Gita, what Krishna is asking us to do is actually to let go, to detach from the fruit of our action. So what he's saying is act absolutely impeccably in the moment. Do your absolute best. Be absolutely present. Try and be as efficient as you can with your action. Try to really move forward in any direction of your life, whether that be your career, whether it be solving a health problem, whatever it might be. But at the same time, Try your best not to attach to the outcome of those actions. Do your very best to see if you can let go of needing a certain result. And in addition to that, when the result does come, can you actually greet that result in your life with a sense of balance, with a sense of equanimity? And that was actually something that I understood a little bit later from one of my teachers. It's not just about letting go of attachment to the results of our actions. It's also about cultivating this practice of actually greeting with equanimity the results of our actions, even if those results do not conform to the expectations or ideas that we had of what would come from those actions when we set out on them. And this is really, really crucial, particularly when we're dealing with pain and suffering in our lives, which to a certain degree all of us do at some point, whether it's losing a loved one, whether it's a loved one being ill, whether it's losing a job, whether it's losing financial stability, whatever it may be. There are situations in our lives where we either have this choice of attaching vehemently to an idea that things should be a certain way and forcing an agenda which often causes anxiety, often causes stress, often causes depletion, or whether we can find it in ourselves to do our best in the moment, but then absolutely let go, and what some people say as let God. So the other aspect of this karma yoga, which is what it's officially known as in the Bhagavad Gita, is the fact that we actually not only let go of the result of our actions, we not only greet the results of our actions with equanimity, but we also have faith that the results that are arising from our actions are the results that are meant to be. They are the results that are going to teach us and to help us evolve and to become more and more spiritually connected. And that's why this week I wanted to just focus on this verse, which hopefully brings some of this together. And the verse essentially says this. It says, seek refuge in the attitude of detachment. So it actually says seek refuge in an attitude of detachment, which means that we let go of holding things so tight. It doesn't mean we're aloof. It doesn't mean we don't care. It doesn't mean we disconnect. But what it means is we hold less tightly the need for things to be in a certain way. And through that, through letting go of the stress of grasping at things, we find that actually there is space to be in connection with the moment and therefore in connection with the important relationships in our lives. So it says, seek refuge in the attitude of detachment, and you will amass the wealth of spiritual awareness. So what this is also saying is that when we stop grasping and when we stop busying the mind with ideas and concepts of how things should be, of what should be going on in our lives at the pace that we expect and all of this stuff, what happens is we actually start to create a little bit less activity in the mind. And as we know, yoga is about connecting to our deeper self with a capital S, as it's called in the Bhagavad Gita, which is our awareness or the essence of the divine that lives within us. So by quietening the mind, we actually amass a wealth of spiritual awareness, which is we become aware of this essence within us, which is beyond the mind, which is beyond the body, which is beyond our circumstances, and provides us refuge as it is stable and blissful and eternal and unchanging. Krishna goes on to say that those who are motivated only by desire for the fruits of action are miserable. Quite unequivocally, if your life is about action and needing a certain action to lead to a certain result, then we are going to find more often than not we don't meet those expectations, and therefore in that delta between action and expectation of action, we become disappointed. But as Krishna says even more pointedly, we become miserable. For they are constantly anxious about the results of what they do. They are constantly anxious about the results of what they do. So essentially, to detach from the fruit of our actions is a lifelong practice. It's not something that we can suddenly intellectually jump into, but we can just start to notice, okay, I'm in the process of doing something which has maybe long-term consequences for my life. And can I do the action and just be totally present in it and let go of the need to control what happens once the result of that action has borne fruit? Can we let go and have faith that whatever is coming to us is meant to be? And in the situation of our daughter, for example, who continues to go through treatment and who we continue to experience distress and emotional upheaval as a result of various things going on in her life and therefore impacting our lives, I found one of the most powerful practices each and every day is to wake up with gratitude for the fact that we are all here together, to do the best we can with doctor's appointments, to do the best we can with medication and all of those things, but ultimately to know that we are not in control and that something higher is in control guiding this situation, and to surrender into that situation and to let go of having expectations of what should be. Because then we find we are less in resistance to our lives, we are less in resistance to the circumstances of our lives, and we can connect more fully into what is actually going on without resistance and find love and peace and stability in this moment of time. And that's one of the things that people often can find surprising if they've not been in a similar situation, is people tend to think that when something bad is going on in our lives, that everything is bad. But actually, as a result of having challenges with our daughter's health, we have some of the most beautiful moments because we cherish them even more deeply to a certain extent, because we know that things are turbulent and things are rocky, and 1 minute she can be well and the next minute something else could be happening. So it teaches us to stay present. It teaches us to really understand the spiritual nature of awareness in every single moment, the spiritual nature of the divine in our hearts. And as a result of that, although of course we wouldn't hope or wish for it, we can see that actually this situation is bringing all sorts of benefits and helping us to evolve as a family in a very, very spiritual way. So again, that's not to say we have it perfect. It's not to say that yoga suddenly diminishes all of the feelings of sadness and difficulty and anxiety. But this practice of Vairagya, this practice of karma yoga, of letting go of attachment to the results of our actions, is incredibly powerful. So perhaps you can contemplate this and how you might be able to apply these practices in your own lives. Give it some thought, try to bring them into your own lives, practice them for a while and see what happens. As always, thank you very much for being here. I hope you found this video useful, and I look forward to being present with you again soon. Namaste.